liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis.
What do astronauts and alligators have in common? You can find them both around the Kennedy Space Center. Today on This American Land.
They're really intelligent, they're inquisitive. You can see the cogs turning in their brain.
Plants are geniuses at staying cool in sunlight.
Putting down roots on New York City rooftops. How to create precious green space to help tame the urban heat. All this and more now on This American Land. Funding for This American Land is provided by the Weiss Foundation, the Turner Foundation, the Daniel K. Thorne Foundation, the Pew Charitable Trust.
Welcome to This American Land. I'm Caroline Ravel.
And I'm Bruce Burkhart. Every week we'll bring you unique and thoughtful stories about America's natural resources, its landscapes, waters, and wildlife.
We've got a great lineup of stories today about fascinating places you may have never heard of. For decades, the U.S. space program has been a symbol of national pride. Despite the recent end of the shuttle program, NASA's mission to protect the natural treasures that surround the Kennedy Space Center remains a top priority.
3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis.
One mention of the Kennedy Space Center, and this is the image that usually comes to mind. But in fact, exploring the bounds of the universe isn't NASA's only job. Some of the agency's most important work takes place right here on Earth. For 30 years, the Center's ecological program has focused on researching the effects of the agency's space operations on the local ecosystem.
NASA is an extremely strong partner because they, in fact, own the land and have given us the management responsibility for that land.
As the lead agency for managing the refuge, Mike Laguerre with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service makes it clear that preserving the area's wildlife is job one.
It's our agency's responsibility, and we're the only federal agency that has that as their primary mandate. Wildlife is our mission.
The 140,000-acre Merritt Island Refuge, where the launch facilities are located, along with the surrounding lands and waterways, house a complex ecosystem that includes over 1,000 species of plants, birds, fish, and other animals. Many of the species here, like the Florida manatee, are endangered and protected by state and federal laws.
There are more threatened and endangered species here than any other federal property in continental United States. And so an objective of managing this ecosystem is to manage for biological diversity.
For decades, wildlife ecologist David Breininger and his colleagues at the Kennedy Center have worked to preserve the health of this habitat. One success story he points to is the Florida scrub jay that ecologists have successfully pulled back from the brink of extinction.
The goals are to increase population size by twofold. Usually if a Florida scrub jay population is doing well in a particular area, then lots of other species that are unique to that particular habitat will be doing fine.
What most people don't know is that one of the most important tools to manage this type of ecosystem is fire. Helping to thin out the vegetation and control the growth of exotic species gives the native species an upper hand. Other scientists are focused on managing the health of the water.
Three major types of aquatic habitats we have are salt marshes, the estuarine lagoonal system, and in our nearshore oceanic systems. We're looking over a salt marsh that's been restored over the past few years.
Biologist Doug Scheit and his group keep a keen eye on the growing number of aquatic species that have migrated to the area's rivers and lagoons. As human encroachment stresses other coastlines, he's seen an increase in the number of animals that use the refuge to mate and bear their young.
There's more and more development, especially on the lagoon. As those are becoming less inhabitable down the lagoon, they become more dependent on the area around the Space Center for at least one part of their life histories.
But scientists say a more immediate threat to the area is climate change. They say that slight rises in sea levels may increase erosion along Florida's coast. They also fear that flooded wetlands and estuaries may pose grave challenges for nesting turtles and other animals down the road. As they look towards the future, these experts say they will focus on protecting the area's natural treasures while they wait for NASA's next generation of space technology to take flight.
The Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge was established in 1963. It is one of more than 500 national wildlife refuges in the United States.
More than 20 years ago, scientists managed to save California condors from the brink of extinction. Now, these magnificent birds face another threat from lead ammunition. More now in efforts to give them a fighting chance.
It is the largest flying land bird in North America. It is also one of the most endangered species on Earth. In 1987, the last 22 California condors in the world were captured and bred in captivity and pulled back from the brink of extinction. Today, they number 395 birds, 200 of which live in the wild, occupying the border of Utah and Arizona and the central coast of California.
Having dealt with these birds and handled these birds and putting transmitters on them, watching them for hours on end throughout the day, they're really intelligent, they're inquisitive. You can see the cogs turning in their brain.
Chris Parrish is one of the condor's best friends. From the top of the Vermilion Cliffs in northern Arizona, his team of biologists release young condors that have been raised in captivity and rehabilitate the increasing number of sick or injured birds.
Right now, the biggest threat we have to this population is ingestion of lead. Most of that lead seems to come from spent ammunition.
All right, buddy.
While some birds die due to things such as power lines and predators, the overwhelming hazard facing this critically endangered species is lead.
Unfortunately, if you hunt with a lead bullet, because lead is such a soft metal, when it hits the animal at a high velocity, it actually fragments into hundreds of pieces.
Sometimes up to 700 fragments in a single carcass from a single shot. Even when the bullet passes clean through an animal, it leaves a trail of fragments. Through monitoring every individual bird via radio telemetry transmitters, some GPS transmitters, we have the ability to assess the population on a daily and annual basis.
Although scientists continue to successfully breed birds in captivity, California condors still do not proliferate in the wild. They're carrion eaters, subsisting solely on remains from other dead animals. In the land around Grand Canyon and Zion National Parks, condors are feeding on wounded game lost by hunters, or sometimes feeding on coyotes or other animals shot and left for dead. So far, 21 birds have died from lead poisoning in Arizona alone, nearly 30% of the local population.
We've been alerted to the fact that, hey, lead bullets fragment and lead pellets are sometimes contained in the animals that we hunt. If we leave them in the field, they're going to be consumed by scavengers and potentially be poisoned and, in the worst case, be killed.
Recently, California banned all lead ammunition within the condor's range. And several years ago, Arizona Game and Fish began educating hunters as well, offering them incentives to switch to non-lead ammunition. Although copper bullets can be more expensive, hunters are finding positive reasons to make the switch.
There's a concern with lead in the meat. A copper bullet, you don't have lead in the meat. You're not having the fragmentation that you get from a lead bullet quite often. Lead is, one of those things that bioaccumulates over time, and less lead the better.
We're happy to say that over 90% of the hunters said that the solid copper bullets performed the same or better than the lead ammo that they were already using.
Inquisitive and opportunistic condors are now venturing further north into Utah, searching for food and reclaiming habitat they once occupied almost 100 years ago.
Along with the state of Arizona and the Peregrine Fund, we're starting to work with hunters in Utah to try to educate them to the issues of lead exposure to condors and what they might be able to do to improve survivorship and decrease the exposure to lead.
Through the cooperation of scientists and wildlife managers, and with the help of a willing public, the future of this rarest of birds is looking up.
We always hear about what we do wrong, how bad humans are, but in this case we have the opportunity to say, hey, look what people did, because they cared enough to look into the problem, hopefully solve the problem, and recover the species.
Condor nesting sites are in various rock formations, including caves and crevices. Foraging for carrion occurs over long distances. A condor can travel nearly 100 miles per day in search of food.
Bats are elegant creatures, and they can gobble up thousands of insects in a single night of hunting. But because they're nocturnal, bats still carry with them a lot of mystery.
You're going to get a phenomenal look now at some bats in Georgia. With the help of experienced bat researchers, Sharon Collins and her crew at Georgia Public Broadcasting take us to the Bat Cave.
Deep in the woods of South Georgia, there is this secret spot where a miracle of nature occurs just about every night. It is a rocky, damp, moss-covered place that is not for the squeamish. The creatures who live here spend much of their time looking for an opportunistic meal, lurking in the crevices that make up this land. But that's not why we came. We're here because this is also home to 50,000 bats. We hope to sit in the midst of a bat emergence.
So what time do the bats come out, generally?
It'll be right before sunset.
So
we've got about half hour or so.
Researcher Jay Scott agreed to take us to this place on condition that we not reveal its location. We are on private property and headed for a cave that is notoriously dangerous.
Right, and this is where...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we're going right down there.
The descent is a lot more treacherous than I anticipated.
Okay, this looks pretty steep to me. So is it permissible to go down on your rear end?
Yep.
Oh! All right. Okay. Calm, calm.
Looking at a seemingly endless hole down below, I'm now having second thoughts.
Oh, wow.
And we don't have to go straight down. We're gonna...
I was going to say, that does not look doable to me.
Yeah, no, that definitely is not doable.
Okay.
Jay keeps saying things like, grab this rock, swing around, and drop. Not very reassuring. From above, we're now barely dots in a black hole, and I decide there's no way our crew can get down here with heavy gear on their backs. Jay and I head back up. So, just a few weeks later, on the heels of a violent rainstorm, our gear lowered earlier on ropes, we make the descent again.
This is crazy. Ah, bat guano. Nice.
And we made it.
And we gotta go back up in the dark, huh?
Yeah, but going up's the easy part.
Yeah, right. But as we settled on the rocks, covered with bat guano, it happened. The miracle of nature we had waited for. Bats began to emerge by the hundreds. It looks like the backdrop for a science fiction movie. Bats are everywhere, whooshing by our heads and moving so fast it is almost impossible to see their wings move.
This is incredible.
Told you it was nice down here.
I just love the fact that they're flying in between us and they're just everywhere.
Yeah, and they're going up and looking for food right away.
Thousands of southeastern bats are coming out to feed, looking for insects, searching for water. They've been fasting all day, and many of them have babies to feed.
pups. That's what a baby bat is called. It's a pup. When they're really young, they need mother's milk, just like most mammals. They need that lactation. So yeah, bats will produce milk.
It is sometimes hard to remember that these are indeed mammals. Not even a bird can fly like this.
And they're really amazing acrobats in the air.
I just want to see one to land on.
I would bet that if you kept your hand there all night, even with 50,000 bats coming through, they wouldn't hit your hand once.
We're going to slow things down a bit, frame by frame, so you can see what's happening. It is still so fast, the bat looks like a blur. When you are surrounded by them, it seems more magic than science. Jay brings up a bat so we can see it closer.
And this little bit down here, that's actually his thumb, that little claw right there. And that's what they primarily use for climbing around the rocks. Did you want to check to see if that's a juvenile? With juveniles, there's a break in the bone that hasn't completely calcified yet. And as they mature, that will fill in.
Yeah, I can see. I don't see one, do you?
I don't see one. This is an adult. She's probably hungry, so we should probably let him or her go.
Ready?
And just open your fingers and she'll fly off. There she goes.
Wow.
Excellent.
Very cool. They're so incredible.
Yeah, they really are. They're amazing, amazing critters.
For This American Land, I'm Sharon Collins.
Never attempt to touch a bat in the wild. Sharon Collins and her crew received a series of rabies vaccinations before videotaping this story.
Railroads helped to settle the Wild West. But what is their role in the 21st century? A light rail system in New Mexico is getting mixed reviews.
The Rail Runner Express has become a good option for some commuters and tourists, tying together two of the state's most important communities. All aboard.
Passengers, this will be your final boarding call. Rail Runner Express, train number 512, northbound service to Santa Fe. All aboard. Beep, 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 beep.
It doesn't look much like Boston, Philadelphia, or even Los Angeles, but New Mexico now has something that those in other large urban areas have, a light rail system. With the New Mexico State bird as its mascot and namesake, the Rail Runner Regional Express glides along through sparse countryside, connecting New Mexico's largest city with America's oldest state capital.
It's just the same thing over and over again when you're on the interstate. And now you can sit back, you can relax, you can look out and see different things. There's always something different to see when you're riding the Rail Runner.
Steve Francis and wife Deborah Hiron are taking Rail Runner to Santa Fe to meet with friends for the day. The train is changing the way many New Mexicans travel.
No hustle and bustle and no traffic. Not having to worry about the other guy or even yourself. Just sit back and enjoy.
Undertaken in 2003 by then-Governor Bill Richardson, the Rail Runner project took 5 years and $400 million to build. The 100-mile route from Albuquerque to Santa Fe stands apart from other light rail systems.
There are very few regions that have commuter rail service that look like this region in terms of population density, and the communities that are served by this system.
Although it is one of the fastest growing regions in the United States, still less than 1 million people live in the Albuquerque metro area. But in some ways, that lack of population density is what makes the Rail Runner so valued around here. Now, Native American villages, once detached and disparate in these wide open spaces, are connected to the larger community.
Whether you're locating in Santa Fe or Albuquerque, you're really locating in a potential labor market that's potentially 1 million people, and the train connects us all.
Daniel Ransom commutes to Santa Fe daily from Albuquerque, where housing and the cost of living is much cheaper. purchasing a $90 monthly rail pass now saves him hundreds of dollars a month.
When the gas prices were about $4 a gallon, 1 month commuting every day, I spent about $500 in gas.
In Santa Fe, an unexpected boon from the new rail service, many rail runner riders are tourists using the train as a cheap, leisurely mode of transportation to visit this iconic city. But the New Mexican light rail is not without its naysayers.
Too expensive, not the best transportation option for New Mexicans, and just an unwise use of taxpayer funds.
And maybe not the most eco-friendly mode of transportation. Powered by diesel fuel, its heavy engines release more CO2 into the atmosphere than would a comparable bus system. Fiscal conservatives believe an expanded bus service to be a better choice for the region.
The cost would have been far lower for that kind of service to be implemented than for what the train cost, which was $400 million to purchase the track, build the 20 miles of new track that needed to be laid, and buy all the equipment.
Still, voters approved a sales tax increase to keep the rail runner on track after federal grants ended in 2008.
I think you see a progressive governor and a progressive community saying, let's make this work for us, and so far it is.
Rail runner locomotives produce about 3,600 horsepower and are capable of running speeds in excess of 100 miles per hour. Since they run on diesel fuel, biodiesel is being explored as a potential fuel source.
When it comes to keeping cool, scientists are taking some important hints from Mother Nature. Simply adding plants to urban rooftops can improve energy efficiency, manage stormwater, and even provide a resting place for birds or butterflies.
Big cities are exploring the many benefits of these green roofs, including a reduction in noise and pollution. Miles O'Brien has more in our Science Nation report.
The rooftops of Manhattan are as varied as the city itself. Ventilation systems and water towers are pretty commonplace. But something else is taking root up here.
It's a roof with living plants, and it's a new form of urban vegetation.
Columbia University climate scientist Stuart Gaffin is a man of Green Gables. He's on a green roof, topped off with layers of material for drainage and a chemical substrate, lighter than soil, that supports plant growth.
And we are just really discovering them in the United States and their versatility. I don't do any weeding.
With help from the National Science Foundation, Gaffin and his teammates at Columbia are finding that green roofs have a beneficial effect on harsh urban environments.
You can start with temperature. Plants are geniuses at staying cool in sunlight. The temperature differences on a black roof versus a green roof are astonishing. I've seen them get up to 180 degrees, whereas if you had a green roof, typically the plants are about the same temperature as the air. So in that summer day, if it was 70 degrees out, instead of 180 on that black roof, the plants are only about 70 or 80.
In summer, the concrete of a city absorbs and stores a lot of heat. Gaffin believes enough green roof space could counteract that with a cooling effect. Then he says there are the water benefits.
When we get a typical rainfall, we get a wave of water from all these buildings and streets hitting our municipal sewer system, which can't handle it, and so it actually triggers pollution events in our rivers.
But after a rainfall, some of the green roofs soak up all the water that hits them.
Now, that's an astonishing thing because a standard roof has 100% runoff. And the list goes on and on. There's noise reduction. We've seen acid rain reduction. We've seen pollutants removed. When I get on these roofs in the summertime, they become oases of biological activity, honeybees and butterflies and other things. So these systems, as living systems, do wonderful things.
In the lab at Columbia University, civil engineer and project lead Patricia Culligan is working to make green roofs greener by growing vegetation in waste materials like this pulp from paper manufacturing.
Most existing green roof growing media that support the plant life are not environmentally friendly. So we're looking at waste products as an alternative. And what you see here is waste from paper production. It's actually paper pulp. And as you can see, it's quite moist, it holds a lot of moisture, and it's lightweight, so it offers a promising alternative to the current media that are used.
If green roofs flourish, as these researchers hope, they may have planted the seeds of a revolution worth shouting about from the rooftops. For Science Nation, I'm Miles O'Brien.
A story we're working on for a future show.
We need to make sure we're at the table to voice our concerns, to work with industry, work with the government regulators to make sure it's done responsibly.
Oil drilling off Alaska's Arctic coast. A special show about how offshore drilling could affect Native communities and the wildlife that live there.
Thanks for joining us for This American Land. You can count on us to bring you original stories on important issues affecting America's natural landscapes, waters, and wildlife. We'll see you next time.
For more information about this program, visit thisamericanland.org. Funding for This American Land is provided by the Weiss Foundation, the Turner Foundation, the Daniel K. Thorne Foundation, the Pew Charitable Trusts,